Minicamp storylines galore is not something I thought I'd be saying, but they exist because there's some people that just aren't there. And it can get concerning. We're going to go through some of them and figure out which ones are the most concerning. But I got to wonder what's going on in Cincinnati. And I'll just rip the Band-Aid right off and get straight to the Bengals because it feels like this is mass chaos. Trey Hendrickson is holding out. We all know that. We understand that. We expect that. It surprises me much more that Shemar Stewart, the first-round draft pick, also at this point is not participating because he hasn't signed his contract yet. Check this out. This is a little what Shemar had to say about why he's not there.
Rookie minicamp will be over at the end of the week. I feel like I assume it should be done between now and then. I hope they get back on the field tomorrow. That's what I'm planning to do. But as in how far I'll take it, I mean, it just depends. Like, in my case, I'm 100% right. I'm not asking for nothing y'all never done before. But in y'all case, y'all just want to win an argument instead of winning more games, in my opinion.
That last line, and let's be clear here, the Bengals are trying to change some contract language. They're doing something. They're trying to do something with Shemar in voiding some future guarantees that they haven't done the last couple of years for first-round picks, all of these different things. But Shemar flat out coming out, Frank, and saying, y'all just trying to be right to the team that he's about to try and play for presumably the next 10 years. That's aggressive from a player. Like that's not just, burying my head and doing the work. He's making a statement there.
And if this were just about any other team, I don't think it'd be that big of a deal. We'd talk about it and then kind of forget about it. This is the Bengals we're talking about. This is the same Bengals team that's Mike Brown saying, I won't negotiate with Jamar Chase once training camp starts. We don't do that around here. Well, okay, that costs you a few $1 million, Mike. It's just this organization has this decades-long tradition, I guess, of just being cheap. That's the reputation of the Bengals. They are not helping it with doing stuff like this. All of a sudden, the Cincinnati Enquirer reported this. They're starting this brand new this year. They're starting a new precedent where they can put language in rookies' contracts where they can go after future guarantees if something goes wrong. I'm assuming. Why? Like, what's the point of all this? You just took Shemar Stewart, who should be celebrated right now. He's your first-round pick. Everybody should be excited. And you're getting that young man's career off to such a sour start with you. He's already upset with you. He hasn't even practiced with you yet. And he's already against you. This is the Bengals. And if it was the Packers, we'd be saying, whatever. This is just, it'll get figured out and everybody will be fine and forget about it. But this is the Bengals, and it just feeds into this reputation that they're cheap. They're anti-player. They've really never known how to run that organization the right way. This is bad. I think it's a terrible look for them. I mean, whether this gets resolved tomorrow or not, we'll remember, oh, yeah, the Bengals, yeah, they were antagonizing Shemar Stewart, trying to set this new precedent that they never had before.
Yeah, I think it's just kind of this reminder of, remember when the NFLPA reports came out? And this wasn't we don't like one person. It was, they're not giving us vitamins. They're not giving us supplements. They're not giving us 3 meals a day. They're not giving us child care and daycare and all of that. I mean, this is one thing after the next. The first time I went to the Bengals on my training camp tour, I was actually pretty shocked because I'd come from the Cowboys world, which the Cowboys have their own issues, but they have a full-on training facility. They have a weight room. They have practice fields, a different practice facility. And the Bengals, it's there's one little essentially patch of grass that's slightly underplaying it, but not by much, next to the stadium. But there is one set of lockers and general facilities, and they just kind of work out of their stadium. And again, obviously, I don't have the money to spend on these things, but I think you have to realize at some point, if you are trying to be a competitive organization relative to the other 31 teams in your league, they are not meeting the standard for what other teams are providing for general workplace ability. And it's easy for us to say if I don't have vitamins and supplements covered by Yahoo, it's probably not going to impact my performance on the podcast. But if you don't have all those nutrition type things and you're a football player, that is directly impacting your performance. And so I think when it comes to it, this, as Frank said, is just the latest example of them trying to take a financial standard or create a financial rule that is not emulated across the league. And this is a guy who's represented by an agent who has players across the league. So you can't try and pull one over on the rookie and say hey, you don't know what's going on, because the agent does. I would also like to point out, and our colleague Charles Robinson did a great job with this, is when guys like Caleb Williams last year and Shador Sanders this year don't have contracts and then something happens don't have agents and then something happens like this, it makes it really, really difficult to litigate. So despite the NFLPA and agent world's many problems that they do have, and we could do another podcast on that, I do think this is one of the times where you say, hey, this is why you want an agent, even if you think it's just your rookie contract. Because I do hear from guys, including parents of people in this draft class, who told me, I don't think that we need an agent right now because we're not negotiating that next deal and there's a rookie wage scale. Well, what do you do when you have language like this built in and a team all of a sudden tries to start a new precedent? That's when your agent can say, heck no, we're not doing that. And that's when the agent can put the pressure on the player to try and create distance between the player and the team.
Precedent in these contract negotiations also can be established a different way. Like if the Bengals are truly passionate about some of these future guarantees and they don't think that they should exist, I would argue that that's the moment that you go to your brothers and sisters in league ownership and you talk to everybody about it and you decide that that becomes something that you want to collectively bargain into the next rookie wage scale in the next CBA. Like that's just, I always come back to collective bargaining because there is a process. Like, hey, we're really passionate about this and we're willing to give up that to get it. That's the way teams have recourse. So if the Bengals think that they're smarter than everybody else and they found something that shouldn't exist in these contracts, they have a way to go about it. Might not be a short-term fix, but they have a long-term fix of going about it, going to the rest of the league and trying to figure out how passionate the other 31 owners are. For them to stand out on an island and decide that they want to put language in a contract that the pick right before and right after doesn't have. I don't know how the hell you think you're going to push that through. Like, what kind of idiot do you think you're negotiating with that you can put something in their contract that's a poison pill or any sort of difference in their contract that the next person drafted doesn't have to deal with? That just doesn't make any common sense, Frank.
And it's just all dumb to me. Like, what are you trying to prove here? Like, again, Shemar Stewart you're trying to build that defense. He's a big part of what you're trying to do. You drafted him, I think, 15th overall, and you're already antagonizing him. What's the end game here? What are you really trying to get accomplished? And this is why Trey Hendrickson ain't going to get paid. I'm sorry, Trey, but the Bengals just don't know how to do this. We're going to get to a point where Mike Brown says something ridiculous at the beginning of training camp, like, we're not negotiating. He's under contract. He should come play for us. Like, the Bengals have never cut a guy in the middle of his contract. And Trey Hendrickson is just going to be stuck because the Bengals just don't know how to treat their players the right way. And this is not just this year, a couple of years. It seemed to be turning when they made the Super Bowl. Everybody was like, oh, the Bengals are different now. But now we just revert. And it's what they've done for decades and decades and decades when, like, it was like guys like you had used jock straps and stuff in the 90s. I remember that story being out there. Like, it is the Bengals being the Bengals. And that's why this Trey Hendrickson thing is so concerning, because I don't think this is some easy fix. When I see TJ Watt holding out for the Steelers, I'm like, yeah, the Steelers are just going to be like, TJ, come on. Like, what do you want? We'll get it done. You're a Hall of Fame player. The Bengals with Trey Hendrickson, I don't think they're going to get this done. I don't have any faith in their front office to do the right thing.
And actually, if they were trying to do this with Trey Hendrickson, that being add language, that would actually be less weird to me than trying to do it with the rookie. Like, I remember when Randy Gregory was deciding whether he was going to go back to play for the Cowboys or go play for the Denver Broncos, and the Denver Broncos were much more willing to be lenient in terms of the guarantees he would lose if he were suspended by the NFL, and he had already been suspended multiple times for violations of their substance abuse policy. And so I think it's like one of those times where you're like, okay, well, he could go somewhere else. He's got free agency, all of that. But it just feels a little more manipulative when you have a guy who is contractually bound to you for 4 to 5 years, because it's not like a, hey, we want you, but under these conditions thing. Like, why'd you draft him if you were going to do this?
We constantly talk about culture in NFL teams. And one narrative is that culture changes and certain players change culture. I'm not sure that the Cincinnati Bengals culturally have changed. I'm just sure that they drafted a few players that are so stinking good that it has made the result on the field better. Like, this is one of those moments where the house looks really good because Joe Burrow fixes a lot of things and Jamar Chase fixes a lot of things. And certainly they did turn around and they invested money, in T. Higgins as well. They invested money where they knew they had to invest money, and that's fine. But I'm not sure foundationally we can really argue that the Bengals have changed. And this is just a reminder that sometimes you win games And that doesn't necessarily mean that you've changed who you are. The stripes of the Bengals may still be the stripes of the Bengals, even if they're not on the losing end most Sundays. They're still the same version of the Cincinnati Bengals. I think they've been for a long time. Let's look at some of the other big storylines. I'll ask you. You already mentioned you don't think T.J. Watt's a big storyline. Are any of us surprised by Terry McLaurin? Like Scary Terry, not like being very vocal about not being happy with his contract after the year that Washington just had. When you got Jaden Daniels, like Frank, you're a little worried about, little nervous about Terry?
A little bit, but just because I hate to think that the momentum that the Commanders got going last season is going to be disrupted at all. McLaurin is such a huge part of what they did. 13 touchdowns last year. Obviously, him and Jaden Daniels just clicked right away. Great combination. You'd hate to see that get set back. I don't think it will be. I think the Commanders do the right thing. Look, they got the cap space for this. They got more than enough cap space to make it right with Terry McLaurin. It depends. I guess if Terry McLaurin, I believe he turns 30 this calendar year, if he's asking for 5 more years at Jamar Chase money, okay, it makes it difficult. I would doubt that. I think that they can make this right. He should be paid in that kind of second tier of receiver. I don't think he makes Justin Jefferson money or Jamar Chase money, but T. Higgins money, yeah, sure. And Washington has cap for that. And they can send a message of, hey, this guy's been a great soldier for this franchise, which has been terrible for years and years. Now that we're good, and he's a big reason we're good, yeah, we're going to give you a raise, Terry. You've earned it. You deserve it. There's an example for the younger guys out there. You keep working hard. You produce on the field. We'll take care of you down the road. I think I'm not very worried about it, but you just never know until, I guess, Terry McLaurin's happy.
Yeah, I think it's fair for Terry McLaurin to say, like, hey, you guys showed you wanted Debo. You can show that you want me too. According to Nikki Jabvala, who does a great job reporting on the Commanders for the Washington Post, Terry McLaurin actually skipped veteran minicamp in 2022. Also, when he was looking for a new contract, signed a 3-year extension a few weeks later. Now, he wasn't at the same level of leverage in his career, so I think all the more so now. But I think that this Commanders franchise has added a lot of pieces this offseason. It's for him to be like, hey, but who actually got you to this place that it's worth adding these pieces and going, if not all in, pretty close. He was the guy, and he was so key to Jaden Daniels' rookie year. I also think that, like, Dan Quinn's a veteran coach. He's been through this so many times that if there is an organization that could handle it, Dan Quinn, who's a veteran and has prior head coaching experience, Cliff Kingsbury, who's got prior head coaching experience, and oh, by the way, Terry McLaurin is not learning a new offense. Like, Cliff Kingsbury's coming back. I think they have their whole staff coming back, which is really rare in the NFL. I don't have any issues with it now, but I do think that the Commanders should want to get it resolved before training camp, because I think we've seen, whether it's with CeeDee Lamb, whether it's with Brandon Ayuk, a series of other players, it does impact you, in my opinion, if a quarterback or receiver misses training camp. Because if you miss training camp, your timing, your rhythm, all of that is just not ready for the beginning of the season. And there's not enough games in the NFL for that to really be able to be overlooked. But I think for June, I'm not concerned.
I also think we should acknowledge that Terry McLaurin's in the last year of his deal with any real money, with any guaranteed money. He's 30 years old. Like, this is prime opportunity for him to go out and get what could be his last massive payday. So, it makes a lot of sense to me. All of this makes sense to me. Where are we on Anthony Richardson? AR, at this point, where he's seeking a second opinion. Frank, I saw your snarky tweet about seeking a second opinion. You mentioned it there. How you feeling about Anthony Richardson?
I overstated it a little bit to say that, I mean, guys don't get second opinions when the first opinion's good news, right? Like, I don't think that happens a ton.
I slow clapped that tweet. I slow clapped. That was a good tweet, Frank. I don't care.
That's a baseball pitcher thing. Whenever you hear a baseball pitcher has elbow problems and he's going to go get a second opinion, you're like, okay, that's Tommy John surgery is coming next week. And look, there's just nothing good about this for Anthony Richardson. This is terrible for him to even think that he could miss any of training camp. And whether he's compromised if he does, rush back for training camp, he needs to prove something right away. Shane Steichen, Chris Ballard, they're on a hot seat. We know that. Everybody in the world knows that. And I don't want to equate the two things, but when Jim Irsay died, he was the one guy who was really in their corner of like, no, we're going to see this through. We're going to give them another shot. I don't know that his daughters who have taken over ownership have that kind of level of commitment to Shane Steichen and Chris Ballard. So they know they got to win right away. Like, this is it. Like, you can't post a 6-11 season and keep your job. Who's the safer choice? Is it Anthony Richardson, who you saw complete, I believe, 46% of his passes last year, and you might not see him for much of training camp? Or is it Daniel Jones, who's going to come in and just be a steady kind of whatever starter? It's Daniel Jones. I just think this is awful news for Anthony Richardson. Now, look, next week we might hear, oh, he's going to be good to go for training camp. The second opinion was awesome, and he's going to be great. I just wonder. I think this is a really, I think we'll remember this. I think we will be like, yeah, when the Anthony Richardson era kind of ended in Indianapolis, a lot of it was just that shoulder injury popping up again that he's already had surgery on. It just, everything seems bad for Anthony Richardson right now. And I don't love saying that. I really want him to succeed because he's just such a physical marvel. We haven't really seen anybody like him except maybe Cam before. I want him to succeed, but the signs just aren't there right now.
Yeah, and I think when you look at this, one of the key decision makers going forward is Carly Ursay Gordon, who's one of the daughters of Jim Irsay, who passed recently, the Indianapolis Colts team owner. And Carly said, she goes, I think he has all the potential in the world. If he wants to prove it, he can and he will, if he wants to. And I think the fact that we're qualifying this about a guy a few years into his career, and I get that injuries made it so he didn't play most of his first year, he didn't play all of his second year. Injuries were also not the only factor. But I think that when they brought Daniel Jones in, it was always kind of like, this is Anthony's job to lose, but be well aware that you can lose it. And I've told you, I've talked to former offensive coordinators around the league and said, hey, if you were trying to figure this out, like, what would you do? And that was a 2-person quarterback competition when the days were simple and we weren't having 4-person quarterback competitions. But they said, like, look, I try and give them very similar reps, try and get apples to apples comparison on them. But also I would say, hey, if it becomes close or I'm not sure, go to the leaders of the team and say, who do you trust more to win games? And I think that most of the leaders of the team would tell you they trust Daniel Jones more. He's the type of guy who's going to go to work. He's going to figure out how to get it done in practice. I'm not saying he's had like a flawless career to this point, but I think that Anthony Richardson did pretty trust destroying moves last year. And I don't even mean that in a harsh way, but I think that the leaders on the team had to tell him that. And so I think that when you add that to injuries, now the coaching staff has a pretty easy out of like, hey, we're just not sure his shoulder's going to hold up. And one of the things that people close to Anthony were telling me when I was like, why should we not believe that last year's what he is, hey, he didn't have that off season to work on throwing motions. He had to work on rehab and he wasn't able to work on his timing and mechanics. Well, it seems like he's now going to be hindered from doing that fully again this off season.
Speaking of hindering, minicamp storylines, are the Jags hindering the development of Travis Hunter? I just had to ask it that way because I think Jori made a brilliant point from day one of this that you can only split practice so much. And Travis Hunter has said, it's no big deal, it's no big deal, it's no big deal. And the first 4 OTAs, he was only on offense. Everyone was talking about it. So the question now, he's starting to get some defensive reps. But I mean, Jori, did you feel vindicated maybe a little bit when all the stories started coming out after the first couple of days? They're like, hey, he's only on one side of the ball. I mean, you definitely called it.
I mean, it's interesting because I actually think this is a big bummer of an indicator for people who want Travis Hunter to play both sides, because most of the scouts I talked to believed that if you're going to play both ways, it's much easier to play defensively fully and then offensively just in packages, because you can have packages designed specifically for him at receiver. He doesn't have to necessarily know everything going on to be able to not create errors on behalf of the team. But on defense, it's much harder if you're not working in concert because you might miss something that they're attacking you on. Now, fascinatingly, I was talking to Denver Broncos tight end Adam Troutman not long ago for a story, and he actually felt the opposite way because he's like, how do you just spot play him on offense? Because if you do that, everyone knows he's going in, and then you kind of have to like create these decoy plays, and it kind of messes up. So there are different opinions. All of which is to say, though, I thought if he was going to play both ways, he was going to primarily play on defense, and I thought that any offensive-minded head coach was not going to want him playing primarily on defense. So I would not be surprised if, especially like for the bulk of the year, if not the first half of the year, we don't see him on defense, and maybe not even this year. I mean, if he's struggling on offense, then you say, well, how do we give this guy more responsibilities? We've got to figure it out on offense. If he's thriving on offense, then you say he's too valuable. We can't play him on defense. So like, in what way do you actually want him playing both? Like, to me, there's no outcome of him playing on offense during the regular season that would lead coaches to say, yeah, I want to go put him on defense now. What do y'all think?
I was fascinated by, because Travis did play some defense in one of the recent OTAs, and he made one of the, like, I usually don't get excited about highlights on social media in June. What's the point? He made one of the plays I've never seen before. Like he was blanket coverage, broke up the pass, had the wherewithal to then react and intercept it before it hit the ground. It might hit the ground. I don't know. We're not reviewing plays in minicamps, but I was like, wow. And then Ron Milas, their secondary coach, Liam Cohen, joked about this later. Ron Milas came up to him and said, I need that guy more. And everybody laughed. I don't think that's really a joke. That's like joking, not joking, right? I think the defensive staff is like, we want this guy too. Like he's the best cornerback on this team. So I do look, the challenges are the challenges, and I get that. But at some point, I think you're just going to be tempted to push and push and push and see what he can do. I really do. But I do think you're right. I think most of his time is going to be with offense because Liam Cohen is an offensive coach. But I think a bigger deal is this is kind of the make or break Trevor Lawrence season, right? Like you really need to figure it out. Like, is he that dude or not? You got to give him every chance to succeed. And so I think if Travis Hunter does end up playing exclusively offense, mostly offense, I think a big part of that is Trevor Lawrence, just to say, hey, we got to give this guy every chance he can have to succeed right now.
I'm going to be the hot take artist for a second. I think he ends up playing on both sides of the ball from day one of the regular season in an uncomfortable way, simply because I don't think everybody can control themselves. I think everybody's going to get so enticed by what can we do, what can we do, what can we do, and he just the ceiling of what he's capable of.
He wants it. Like
he's going to talk. He's going to. I saw an interview recently from last week with Max Crosby, and they were asking Max about his snap count because he was injured last year, and Max was really passionate about the fact that, hey, nobody's going to tell me to play less. That's not why I got hurt. I'm going to be on the field. I think Travis Hunter's wired the same way, and I don't know that anybody's going to stop him. As long as he can get out there and make plays, I think people are going to be too enticed. It's Adam and Eve. It's the apple. They're going to take a bite, whether it's good for the player or not. All right. It's time for Rise, Repeat, Retreat. Here's what I know. C-Rob's not on this week, which means we can do a good division. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to do the NFC North. We'll figure out Rise, Repeat, Retreat when we come back.